Theresa May warns that Britain is facing a period of momentous change after Brexit and needs to forge a new role in the world. She tells the World Economic Forum that global companies also need to change the way they do things.
We must heed the underlying feeling that there are some companies, particularly those with a global reach, who are playing by a different set of rules to ordinary working people.
We'll have reaction to her speech in Davos live. Also this lunchtime, the desperate search for survivors after a hotel in Italy was hit by an avalanche. Many people are feared dead. Home safe, the British tourists fleeing the political turmoil in the Gambia. A crunch time for the courgette, as cold weather in Europe means empty vegetable shelves in Britain's supermarkets. The French yachtsman heading for victory and a new record in the Vendée Round the World Challenge, holding off a late challenge from Britain's Alex Thompson.
Here, an Isle of Wight ferry catches fire in the Solent. There are no reports of injuries, but services were suspended. And hundreds of jobs could be at risk under plans to shake up councils in Oxfordshire.
Good afternoon and welcome to the BBC News at 1. Theresa May has outlined her vision of a truly global Britain during an address to business leaders at the World Economic Forum in Davos. The Prime Minister said the UK was facing a period of momentous change and must forge a new role in the world. She said the road ahead would be uncertain at times, but Britain sought to become even more global and internationalist. And Mrs May had a warning for bosses whose companies have a global reach, telling them not to forget their responsibilities to communities. Our business editor, Simon Jack, sent this report.
Theresa May stepped out to face the global elite she's been so scathing about. An audience she acknowledged was still struggling to understand the referendum result.
I know that this and the other reasons Britain took such a decision is not always well understood internationally, particularly among our friends and allies in Europe. Some of our European partners feel we've turned our back on them, and I know many fear what our decision means for the future of the EU itself.
But she reassured them it was about taking back control rather than turning our back, and said the UK remained a faithful partner.
That is why Britain is and will always be open for business, open to investment in our companies, infrastructure, universities and entrepreneurs, open to those who want to buy our goods and services, and open to talent and opportunities.
Speaking straight afterwards, the Dutch Prime Minister insisted there would be a cost for leaving.
The UK is now making a choice to control migration, and they are paying a huge price because the economic growth rate of the UK will be impacted negatively by the fact that they will leave the biggest market in the world.
After HSBC and UBS announced jobs would be leaving the UK, there was better news today from Barclays.
I think the UK will continue to be the financial lungs for Europe. We may have to move certain activities, we may have to change the legal structure that we use to operate in Europe, but I think it's going to be at the margin and will be manageable.
But she saved her sternest language for business.
But at the same time as promoting this openness, we must heed the underlying feeling that there are some companies, particularly those with a global reach, who are playing by a different set of rules to ordinary working people. So it is essential for business to demonstrate leadership.
Did the audience get the message?
Business leaders I speak to really do understand that not everybody gets the benefit of globalisation, either in a practical sense or an understanding sense. But I do sense a real determination to fix that.
She made it clear the government will intervene to improve behaviour if necessary, a hint perhaps of what we'll get from her industrial strategy unveiled next week.
Well, let's speak to Simon in Davos now. So how did her speech go down there?
Well, it's a pretty tough crowd here in Davos. Globalisation, free trade, like a religion here, and people make a pilgrimage here. They take it as read that globalisation is a good thing, but the election of Mr Trump, who now thinks that globalisation is not such a great thing, and the Brexit result have made people question whether, in fact, there is public support for that. So where was Theresa May going to come out? She said, listen, I am in favour of globalisation. I am in favour of free trade. But if we don't take everyone with us, then we'll lose the kind of public consent that we need if we're going to preserve the current system. So her message was very clear. I'm right behind free trade, right behind globalisation, but clean up your act. And if you don't, I'm very happy to intervene. And she's got an industrial strategy that she's unveiling on Monday of next week. And I think this was a flavour, this was a message back home saying we are going to get stuck in and make sure that economic success and growth reaches all parts of the country and all parts of society. That was her big message today.
Simon Jack, thank you. Well, let's go to our assistant political editor, Norman Smith, who's in Westminster. How worried are the government about business reaction to Brexit?
They have to be acutely worried because we have already seen, for example, two big banks, HSBC and UBS, both signalling they're poised to relocate thousands of jobs. We had the boss of Toyota this morning equally signalling disquiet about how his company, which employs 3,000 people in Britain, is going to remain competitive post-Brexit. And for all Mrs May's continuing criticism of the so-called international elite, the very people in her audience, she needs those people on board to make a success of Brexit and to ensure Britain's continued economic prosperity, because, like it or not, they have in their hands thousands of jobs in Britain. They bring in billions of pounds worth of investment and are absolutely central to our economy. So it was significant, I think, today that Mrs May did not repeat her warning earlier in the week that if we don't get a deal, we're going to walk away and therefore we'll have to rely on World Trade Organization rules, raising the terrifying prospect for many in business of tariffs. And she has to hope that business will give her time as well to flesh in some of the detail on critical issues around immigration and trade. And that is her other big difficulty. During this 2-year period of negotiation, there is almost certain to be uncertainty, the one thing that business hates above all.
Norman, thank you very much. Norman Smith. At least 30 people are missing after an avalanche struck a hotel in a mountainous resort in the central Italian region of Abruzzo. The avalanche happened after a series of powerful earthquakes hit the area yesterday. The first to help arrived on skis because all the roads were blocked. The mountainous region of central Italy was hit by a succession of 4 earthquakes yesterday, and further tremors were reported overnight. Bad weather from recent storms has brought down power lines and cut off villages. Rescue operations are underway in other parts of the region as well. Our correspondent Frankie McCamley reports.
Buried in snow, barely visible, this is the 3-storey hotel hit by last night's avalanche. Unrecognisable to what it had looked like before. Now, inside, the extent of the damage is becoming clear. Here, what looks like a reception with corridors leading to nowhere, packed full of snow and debris. Up to 20 people were staying in the Hotel Rigopiano, along with 7 members of staff. But faced with bad weather, it took rescuers hours to get here.
The hotel was reached at 4:30 in the morning by courageous men who faced unbearable situations. They reached the place and saved 2 people. They are now working to bring the means of transport that are difficult to bring.
On skis, in the early hours, mountain rescue teams faced snowstorms to get to the area hit. With routes blocked to emergency vehicles, only manpower could save those trapped. 1 man is led to safety. Nearby, relatives faced an agonising wait for news.
They're extracting them from the hotel and bringing them to hospitals, I think, but I don't know because it's impossible for us to go up.
Others text loved ones inside, urging them to stay calm. This morning, roads to the site are slowly carved out, reopening the area which is popular for skiers. It's thought yesterday's avalanche was caused by 4 major earthquakes in a region which is already fragile. Last year, 3 magnitude 6 tremors hit villages here between August and October, one of which left nearly 300 people dead. For those who have managed to reach the hotel, conditions have begun to ease, but dozens, including children, are still missing as the extent of this tragedy begins to unfold. Frankie McCamley, BBC News.
1,000 British holidaymakers have arrived back in the UK from the Gambia amid concerns of a worsening political crisis. The Foreign Office is continuing to advise people to avoid all but essential travel to the country after its outgoing president refused to meet a midnight deadline to hand over power. Thousands more tourists are due to be brought home in the coming days. Our correspondent Johnny Diamond reports.
Nigerian troops prepare for the worst. They're moving into position in Gambia's neighbour, Senegal. The plan? To intervene with force if Gambia's president doesn't leave office. Power is meant to be handed over in Gambia today, but the 4-term president, Yahya Jammeh, won't let go. In Manchester, evacuated British tourists spoke of tense times in the West African state.
Last night it all got a bit too serious, all the restaurants shut down, all the shops shut down, and it got really scary. And then this morning, because we'd heard that 15 planes had come out to get the Dutch people, and we were like, well, what about the English, you know?
Where the ferry was, everybody was getting on the ferry, all the Gambian people getting on the ferry, carrying all their possessions on the suitcases, on their heads and everything. And it was a real struggle to get on the ferry. And everybody was just fleeing.
In the Gambian capital, the president of Mauritania flew in. The region's leaders have called for President Jammeh to stand down and peacefully hand over power. But he insists he will go on. In neighbouring Senegal, the winner of the election is in talks too. He says he will take power today in a ceremony at the Gambian embassy in Senegal's capital, Dakar. One country with 2 presidents. One of them has to blink, or bloodshed looks unavoidable. Johnny Diamond, BBC News.
New figures from the Office for National Statistics show that there were 11.8 million incidents of crime in England and Wales in the last year. It's the first full year when the offences have been included in the crime survey. Overall, police recorded 8% more offences year on year. With just one day left until Donald Trump is sworn in as the 45th President of the United States, preparations are in full swing in Washington, but can he deliver the jobs and trade that he's promised? This week, we've been taking a road trip through the heart of America on Route 45. Today, our correspondent John Kay is in Tupelo in the state of Mississippi, the birthplace of Elvis Presley. John's been speaking to the people there about their hopes for the next 4 years.
One last practice before heading to Washington. Tonight, the Tupelo High School Band will be travelling 900 miles from Mississippi to the Capitol to play at President Trump's inauguration.
Your face is going to ache.
Yeah, I think so.
What are you most excited about?
Just to march in the parade and get to see Washington for the first time.
What do you think of your new president, Trump?
Donald Trump got 60% of the votes in this state. The students might be playing for him, but that doesn't mean they're all fans of the new man in the White House.
And down!
If you'd been able to vote, put your hands up if you'd have voted for Donald Trump.
Not exactly overwhelming.
3.
I think some of his ideas are actually pretty great, and I think he actually can make America great again. We just have to believe in him and see what happens.
You didn't put your hand up?
No.
Why not?
I don't like him.
You're about to go and play for him.
I know, but like, I'm forced to play. I like Washington, and I don't like him.
You're going for the trip, yeah?
Yeah, basically.
Lots of celebrities said no to performing, didn't they, at the inauguration? Why did you say yes?
Not really a fan of Trump, but I mean, I'm going for the experience and for my band. I'm not going for him, I'm going for me.
Music matters in this small southern town. In fact, it put Tupelo on the map. Just off Route 45 is the tiny house where Elvis Presley was born. But we're not here to talk about the king. We want to talk about the new president. Because as well as producing rock and roll stars, Tupelo produces cars.
Look at this. 1957 Chevrolet. I wish we'd hired one of these for our road trip.
Donald Trump has promised a return to the heyday of American manufacturing. He says he'll create jobs and improve trade deals. This local steel company supplies the car industry. They believe the new president will cut red tape, cut taxes and boost growth.
I feel very optimistic.
The boss here hopes Donald Trump will fill his government with tough business people.
And then if they don't do it, he'll fire them.
But it's not The Apprentice, is it?
No,
politics,
he's not.
Politics is more complicated, it's more nuanced. Is he going to be able to cope with the political, diplomatic challenges?
That remains to be seen. I think he is introducing something into the political landscape that's never been done before.
Anything that you take to the parade is subject to being searched.
The students are ready to go. Tomorrow they will perform outside the White House, and this nation will have to march to a very different beat. John Kay, BBC News, Tupelo, Mississippi.
Well, tomorrow, on the final day of his road trip following Route 45, John will be in deep Donald Trump territory in Mobile, in the state of Alabama, at the USS Alabama, a World War II battleship which is now a museum. And you can watch full coverage of the inauguration ceremony live from Washington tomorrow here on BBC One, with coverage starting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Just after 1:15, our top story this lunchtime. Theresa May warns that Britain is facing a period of momentous change after Brexit and needs to forge a new role in the world. And coming up, over and out for Novak Djokovic as he loses to an outsider from Uzbekistan, ranked 117 in the world.
Stay with us for South Today. We'll have the story of the boss who's trying to get backing for a scheme to help homeless people after discovering one of his employees was sleeping rough. And police stopped more than 100 drivers not paying attention behind the wheel.
In the next few hours, one of the toughest yacht races in the world is coming to an end, with Frenchman Armand Leclerc expected to cross the finishing line first in the Vendée Globe race. It'll mean second place for British sailor Alex Thomson, who turned round a disastrous start and broken 2 world records to come so close to victory. Our sports correspondent Natalie Perks sent this report from the finish line at Les Sables d'Olonne on France's Atlantic coast.
He's battled everything the ocean's thrown at him, eaten only freeze-dried noodles and jelly, and survived on as little as 20 minutes sleep every few hours. It's a fair bet Alex Thomson's last 10 weeks have been very different to yours. When he set off with 28 other boats on the 6th of November, the Hampshire yachtsman waved goodbye to his wife and 2 young children and attempted for the 4th time to become the first Briton to win the Vendée Globe in the race's 27-year history.
Falmouth awaits the arrival of Robin Knox-Johnston aboard.
In fact, the only Briton to win any kind of solo round-the-world non-stop race was Thomson's mentor, Sir Robin Knox-Johnston, in 1969.
When Thomson arrives back here into Les Sables d'Olonne in the early hours of tomorrow morning, he'll have racked up between 25 and 30,000 nautical miles, been past Point Nemo, the furthest point from civilization on Earth, and battled 23-foot waves. He's making it look easy, but it's far from it.
Probably the most difficult sporting challenge left on the planet today. When people ask us to refer to, we always say, several thousand people have now climbed Mount Everest and over 400 people have been into orbit, into outer space, but less than 100 people have still managed to sail single-handedly non-stop around the world.
Hi everyone. Again, I got no idea what day it is.
For Alex, there have been good moments.
It's a good day. The Southern Ocean and it's sunny. Look at this.
Bad moments.
I do wonder why I do it sometimes.
And moments over Christmas where his family worried he was going slightly mad.
Jingle bells, Alex sails, round the world he goes.
His team believe if it wasn't for hitting something and ripping one of his hydrofoils clean off just 2 weeks after the start, he'd already be back, having won in record time. Despite the damage, though, he's gone from being 1,000 nautical miles behind the leader, Armel Lecléache, in December, to around 80 miles behind him. It helps that earlier this week he smashed the world record for the greatest distance sailed solo in 24 hours.
A new 24-hour record. Woo!
His rival knows he's been hot on his tail. It seems he will get his wish. A win from Thompson now looks impossible, barring a major technical problem for Lecléache. But when Thompson arrives back, not only will his family be waiting for him, but his team also have promised to have on hand the two things he's craved during his epic voyage: a hot burger and a cold beer. Natalie Perks, BBC News, Vendée.
Here, Conservative-controlled Surrey Council is to hold a referendum on whether to increase council tax by 15% to fund improved social care in the county. The council says it has a huge gap in its budget as a result of cuts from Westminster. The area includes the constituencies of the Chancellor, Philip Hammond, and the Health Secretary, Jeremy Hunt. A new initiative has been announced to fight 3 deadly diseases scientists believe could spark the next global epidemic. It aims to develop vaccines quickly for MERS, Lassa fever and the Nipah virus. Our global health correspondent, Julia Mazumdar, has more.
What will hit us next in the great global lottery of disease outbreaks? Maybe a virus we already know about, or perhaps a totally new one. The Ebola outbreak in West Africa exposed how utterly unprepared the world is for new epidemics. More than 11,000 people died, partly because there were no vaccines to protect them. The research charity The Wellcome Trust is part of the new coalition, which is concerned that the next outbreak could be even deadlier, especially if it's an airborne virus.
We've got lucky so far, but the world has major gaps for infections we know about, which could cause Ebola-like events, but then spread around the world very quickly. And that puts the world in a very, very vulnerable place.
Scientists have identified 3 obscure viruses they want to fast-track vaccines for. Nipah virus spread to humans from fruit bats. The disease can cause swelling of the brain. Outbreaks have mainly occurred in Bangladesh. Lassa fever is common in West Africa. It kills around 5,000 people every year. The last one is MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. It's believed to be spread by camels. It's killed more than 650 people, mostly here in Saudi Arabia. This lab in Oxford is one of the research facilities trying to come up with a vaccine to protect people against MERS. It's one of the most advanced vaccines out there.
This is the clinical biomanufacturing facility, and this is the basis for the MERS vaccine. Now, it will be scaled up over the coming months, and it's expected that hundreds of vials of this will be ready for human trials by the end of the year.
If this vaccine does work, it could still take a decade or so to get it to those who need it. Historically, money for these obscure viruses hasn't been forthcoming, and the regulatory process is long and complex. These labs also worked on developing an Ebola vaccine.
We found it hugely frustrating that we were doing testing of Ebola vaccines in people and getting very good immune responses and very good safety data in people in Oxford, and yet those vaccines were not being used in West Africa where the Ebola outbreak was happening and people were dying of the disease while we were testing the vaccines. We don't want to be in that situation again.
This sort of research takes years and costs hundreds of millions of dollars. It may not be any of these 3 viruses that cause the next epidemic, but if it is, putting the time and money in now could stop a small outbreak becoming the next global health emergency. Tulip Mazumdar, BBC News.
Now, TV commercials, you either love them or hate them, but which ads were the most complained about last year? Well, the advertising regulator says Money Supermarket's TV commercials got the most, with almost 2,500 complaints about the series of ads which feature dancing builders and businessmen in hot pants and stilettos. Our media correspondent David Silito reports.
It's been all over the ad breaks. The man in the suit with the hot pants and high heels. In the list of most complained about adverts, the various different dancing commercials appear not once, not twice, but 3 times. Money Supermarket, 2,500 complaints. What were the problems people had with it?
Well, they had 3 places in our top 10, and the complaints were all about provocative dance moves. Some people perceived the moves to be too overtly sexual for the time of day that it was shown. And crucially for us, the test is, does it cause serious and widespread offence? We thought in this case, some people might think it's in bad taste, other people might think it's a lot of fun, but certainly we thought it didn't cross that boundary into serious and widespread offence, so we didn't uphold those complaints.
So, lots of complaints, but no ban. And it was the same for this, in which blind footballers mistake a ball with a bell for a cat's jangling collar. It topped the complaints list in 2010. 6 years later, the complaints are still pouring in.
We came to the conclusion that it's fine, firstly because the English blind football team were actually very complimentary about how it presented blind people.
So they weren't unhappy, but what about the cat?
And crucially on the cat, the ad was shown way after kids' programmes had finished, and very few kids will be watching it. So again, we came to the conclusion that this is the right side of the line, and happily at the end of it, the cat is shown alive and well.
Both then are choices about the boundary of offence, but some complaint about adverts aren't on the list. The hard-fought referendum campaign drew anger from both sides, but the Advertising Standards Authority doesn't do politics. David Soletto, BBC News.
Britain's courgette crisis continues. The on-trend vegetable is still missing from many supermarket shelves, with consumers taking to social media to show their outrage. Many are blaming the rise of courgette for the shortage, but suppliers say it's down to the cold weather. Well, as our correspondent Judith Moritz reports, the courgette isn't the only vegetable in short supply.
The common courgette isn't normally thought of as a delicacy, but the vegetable is in such short supply it's fast becoming a luxury item. Prices are double what they were a year ago, and these vegetable wholesalers at London's New Covent Garden Market are feeling the effect.
Some of the green stuff has really been affected, and things that we want to bring in are just too expensive.
Normally, say courgettes are £6–7. They're now 20, 22 quid and struggling to get them.
I've been in this trade for 40 odd years and I've never known it as bad as this, where everything is so dear.
This is the reason why. Sunny Spain is currently snowy Spain. The southeast of the country usually supplies 80% of Europe's fresh produce in winter. But though there was a spare carrot for this snowman, many crops have been hit hard by the big freeze. It's meant empty crates, some shops fresh out of courgettes, and the inevitable social media hashtag.
And it's not just the supermarket shelves which are running low. Online shoppers are struggling too. This morning, the websites for Sainsbury's, Morrison's and Tesco's were all showing courgettes as unavailable.
At Leeds Market this morning, you could get courgettes, but at a price.
Our main core customers in Leeds Market come in for a bargain, they're coming because things are cheap, things are good. Courgettes, broccoli, cauliflowers and a few other things have just gone through the roof.
I don't think we should get too panicky, it's just a courgette.
Not all shops are reporting shortages. Supermarkets say they're working with suppliers to improve stocks, and it shouldn't be long before the courgette crisis is over. Judith Moritz, BBC News.
There's been a big upset in the world of tennis today. The defending champion, Novak Djokovic, has been knocked out of the Australian Open. Djokovic, a 6-time winner of the tournament, who's ranked number 2 in the world, lost in 5 sets in Melbourne to Denis Istomin, a wildcard entry from Uzbekistan. Our sports correspondent Joe Wilson reports.
Denis Istomin, 12 years into his career, 4.5 hours into the match of his life. The world number 117 from Uzbekistan wasn't simply trying to stay with Novak Djokovic, he was trying to break him, to find something more than he'd ever located before. Listen.
There it is. Inspirational.
Jealousy, suggested Shakespeare, is the green-eyed monster. Istomin's spectacles reflect his poor eyesight, not just decoration. 5th set, 6-4. To begrudge him this moment of glory would be desperately unfair. And Novak Djokovic, 6 times winner of the Australian Open, has learned in recent times to deal with defeat. He's had to.
A man ranked outside the top 100.
There's not much I could do. Of course, I was not pleased with my performance overall, but I have to congratulate my opponent today.
That sort of a shock.
Well, Djokovic's departure should benefit Andy Murray more than anyone else, considering Murray only tends to lose to him in Melbourne. Jamie Murray's already out in the doubles. Kyle Edmund lost, and so did Heather Watson, defeated by a little-known American nearest the camera, Jennifer Brady. 10-8 in the third set, and Watson had 5 match points. But in dark blue here, Britain's Johanna Konta beat talented Naomi Osaka in straight sets. Save the shocks for another court. This one was Konta's. Joe Wilson, BBC News.
Time for a look at the weather. Ben Rich is here, and that isn't, is it?
No, this is not here. This is across southern Spain. As we heard earlier in the programme, wintry weather has been causing all kinds of problems across the Mediterranean. This picture from the southeast of Spain is just an example of the scenes we've been seeing, and winter really has taken hold across many parts of continental Europe. These are the afternoon highs this afternoon. Across many central and eastern areas, temperatures will not get above freezing. And as areas of low pressure move into that cold air across southeastern Spain, and also, as we saw earlier on, Italy, we have seen some significant snowfall, and there is some more of that to come. But back home, high pressure is in charge, and for us that means more in the way of quiet weather. Some of us seeing sunny scenes like this from one of our weather watchers in Cornwall, but that is not the scene for everyone. In fact, a little bit further north in Shropshire, it looked a bit more like this morning. A lot of cloud, as you can see on the satellite picture, really across much of the northern 2/3 of the British Isles. But southern areas bathing in that sunshine and will continue to do so this afternoon. But it was a chilly start. Temperatures this morning are down around -5, -6, -7, and as a consequence they will struggle to recover as we go through the afternoon. But it is southern areas that see the best of the sunshine. For mid Wales, the Midlands, a zone of quite murky weather, some rather gloomy, cloudy conditions, and generally across northern England, Northern Ireland and Scotland, there is a lot of cloud around. Here it is slightly milder, temperatures around 8 or 9 degrees, just a few pockets of brightness, some sunshine across parts of northeastern Scotland. And where we do have those clear spells across the far northeast, there could be a patchy frost tonight, but many northern and central areas will not get a frost tonight. There'll be too much in the way of cloud for that. However, further south, clear starry skies, another widespread frost, particularly out in the countryside, where in some places we could get to -6 or -7 degrees. But again, tomorrow it'll be the coldest places at the start of the day that see the best of the sunshine through the day. And gradually through the day, we'll see a bit of a change across the Midlands, Wales, perhaps Northern Ireland. The clouds should tend to roll back. Should see a little more in the way of sunshine. Generally, the further north you are, Northern England, up into much of Scotland, more in the way of cloud. And here, a slightly chillier day to come tomorrow. And that takes us nicely into the weekend. Still quiet with high pressure in charge, but this weather front could be a little bit troublesome on Saturday. It'll certainly bring some thicker cloud. Could bring the odd light shower as well. Rain showers, yes, but perhaps some sleet and snow showers. Nothing disruptive, but some northern and eastern areas particularly could see the odd shower. A chilly day on Saturday, and it stays chilly into Sunday. Mainly dry. Again, a fair amount of cloud. Some of us should see some brightness. So a chilly weekend here at home, but nothing like the disruptive winter weather that's been gripping continental Europe. Back to you, Simon.
Ben, thank you very much. A reminder of our main story this lunchtime. Theresa May warns that Britain is facing a period of momentous change after Brexit and needs to forge a new role in the world. That's all from the BBC News at 1, so it's goodbye from us. And on BBC One, we now join the BBC's news teams where you are. From me, good afternoon.